Daniel Sports Central be giving you guys our Big 12 tournament predictions for this 2023-24 season. We are headed into conference tournament week, and this is going to be a prediction top to bottom of the Big 12 tournament. This will give you an idea as to what you can expect in this tournament, but also a prediction of the entire bracket. So with that, let's get started looking at the first round. We got UCF and Oklahoma State, 12-13 matchup. Overall, UCF hasn't been terrible down the stretch. They won 3 of 5. To finish out the regular season. Oklahoma State, though, not so much. They've lost 5 straight heading into the postseason, and overall, they just are a team that isn't showing much life right now. At least UCF has had a little bit of momentum, and they also have a bit more depth than Oklahoma State does. So I do want to take UCF to at least win in the first round. And then on the other side, you got Cincinnati and West Virginia. West Virginia is 9-22. Not a good year for them. Cincinnati, not a terrible team, 18-13. They've been on the bubble at points this season. Obviously, they're kind of out of the picture at this point, 7-11 in conference. They kind of need a miracle run to get to March Madness at this point. But I do think Cincinnati does beat West Virginia. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if they took care of them pretty easily. And then you got Cincinnati against Kansas in the next round. Looking at your second round matchups, you got TCU and Oklahoma, 8-9 matchup here. TCU's got Emmanuel Miller, who's had a solid season. Both teams 20-11. I do want to take Oklahoma, though, here. I feel like, both teams haven't been great later on in the season. They've lost 3 of their last 4. But I think OU finds a win to the quarterfinals. Then you got UCF and BYU. 2 new additions to the Big 12 this season. 2 teams in their first ever Big 12 tournament, and BYU's had a really good season. This is a team that's got some good depth. They don't really have a big standout. Jackson Robinson's had a really good season, but it's a pretty well-balanced team overall here in BYU. But I think UCF does manage to pull off a pretty big upset here. I think that the Knights do win in the second round and proceed on to the quarterfinals. This is a one that people might not see coming very much, but I do think UCF has, if they can win in the first round, I do like their odds against BYU, even though overall the Cougars have had definitely a better season. But also the Big 12 is a conference that's got a lot of talent top to bottom. It's the best conference in college basketball. You got teams that, you probably could have 8 or 10 teams in March Madness this season out of the Big 12. There's just that much talent. And so for UCF, they're not one of those teams that could get in as an at-large bid, but I do think they find a way into the quarterfinals at least and do take down BYU. Then you got Texas and K-State. This one's really a 50-50 game for me. Texas 20-11. Strong finishes to the season for both teams, coming off of nice wins, and Kansas State especially beating Iowa State this past week. That's definitely something to keep an eye on. I think Kansas State's momentum really is what pushes them forward into the quarterfinals. They haven't been as good in the Big 12 tournament in recent seasons, and Texas has been better, so that does kind of make me hesitant to take the Wildcats here. But I do think K-State finds a win to the quarterfinals. This is really a very important tournament for Kansas State, being kind of on the outside of the bubble. They're in the bubble, but definitely towards the back of it. So they really need a good run in the Big 12 tournament if they want a chance at March Madness. And then you got KU against Cincinnati. Kansas had a really bad loss to finish out the regular season to Houston, lost by 30, and so you couldn't say they have a lot of momentum heading into the postseason. They also have lost 3 of their last 4, which is kind of a concern. But when you consider the talent of Kansas with McCullough and Dickinson, this is a really tough team to beat. I don't think Cincinnati can do it, and Kansas proceeds on to the quarterfinals. Though I will say, I feel like Cincinnati is very much capable of beating KU if that were to happen there in the second round. So for your quarterfinals matchups, you got OU against Houston. Houston is a brutal team that is playing really well right now. I feel like in this position for Houston, they're definitely going to be one of the main favorites, obviously, for March Madness. They're going to be a 1 seed. You got LJ Cryer, who's been incredible this season. They've won 14 of 15, 9 straight heading into this tournament. I think Houston is definitely a team that'll at least win in the quarterfinals in this tournament. And once again, they're a very dangerous team to win a national championship this season. Then you got UCF and Texas Tech, the unlikely Knights, the 12th seed in the quarterfinals. I think this is where it ends, though. Texas Tech does beat UCF. Texas Tech, just a better team. And I mean, the double bye is a huge advantage. I think UCF, having won 2 games into the quarterfinals, they have some good momentum, but I do think that it ends there. And then you got K-State against Iowa State. I think Iowa State does win this one. K-State's obviously got a lot to play for, being a bubble team, but I think Iowa State is the better team here. And the Cyclones, I mean, this is also a very dangerous team when it comes to March Madness coming up. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Iowa State was a Final Four team. 24-7 overall, 13-5 in conference. They're going to win in the quarterfinals, proceed on to the semifinals, and I'm kind of going chalk here in the quarterfinals. I think Baylor proceeds on, beating Kansas. KU does kind of concern me based on the way they've played down the stretch, once again losing 3 of 4. This is still a really talented team, though, with the duo of, once again, Dickinson and McCullough. And I mean, it's more than just them two. But Baylor, being a team, you got Jacoby Walters had a really good season, 22-9 overall. I do want to take Baylor to proceed on to the semifinals. So you got your 4 double bye teams in the semifinals, Houston and Texas Tech. This is a really intriguing matchup. These two teams played each other in the regular season. We saw Houston win it 77-54 back. That was a while ago, but when they did play each other, Houston was dominant, to say the least. So, I mean, all things considered, Houston with their momentum as well, I'm going to take them to proceed on to the championship, and I feel like Houston is a team that it'd be very surprising to me if they lost either in the quarterfinals or the semifinals, just based on the matchups for one, but for 2, the way this team has been playing this season, especially later on. So I'm taking Houston to move on, and then you got Iowa State and Baylor on the flip side. 2 teams really strong seasons. I really like Iowa State, though. I do think that they beat Baylor here, and Iowa State, with their experience and the way that they've been playing as well later on in this season, won 4 or 5 down the stretch. I think Iowa State does proceed on. We got a Houston-Iowa State championship game, so a 1-2 matchup. Nothing too crazy. I feel like that's just, when you consider the matchups and everything that's happened for these teams, it just makes sense to see a Houston-Iowa State championship game. And if you remember back to early January, Iowa State actually beat Houston. So the Cyclones are one of Houston's 3 losses this season. And we did see Houston, though, just a couple of weeks ago in Houston beat Iowa State. So we've seen a split series between these 2 teams. But if we see this matchup in the Big 12 championship, I do think that I'm going to favor the Cyclones here. I think that Iowa State is, I mean, this is a well-balanced team that really could go a long ways, I think, in March Madness. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a Final Four team. Houston's definitely a team that I could see absolutely winning a national championship. You got 2 really strong teams here. And I do think, though, that Iowa State, the 2 seed, knock off Houston, obviously Big 12 newcomer who's had an incredible season. Big 12 is a tough conference, going 28-3 in as tough of a conference, or 15-3 in conference overall for Houston. Really impressive season for them. But I do want to favor Iowa State to pull what would be probably a minor upset in the Big 12 tournament title game. So with that, I'm taking Iowa State. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below on the Big 12 tournament. Who you taking? All of that. And I appreciate you guys all watching as always. My name's Evan. This is All Sports Central. Stay tuned for more. We'll catch you on the next one.